Good evening and welcome to Leicester Fan TV, another away day fan show. We'll be speaking to Rich from Over and Over Again podcast about Arsenal game coming up on Saturday, a 3 o'clock kickoff. Leicester fans are in joy. We finally get a 3 o'clock on a Saturday kickoff. It's been a long time coming. We don't get many of them. We've got a few so far this year. Let me get Rich straight in. Let's have a chat with Rich about the Arsenal game on Saturday. Good evening, Rich. How are you, mate?
Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. Looking forward to the weekend.
Probably you more than us after this weekend result. You boys had a cracking result away at Palace on the opening night on Friday night away at Palace. A comfortable 2-0 win. I did see it, and you look very impressive. And a lot of people are going to be standing up and taking account for you boys this year, definitely for the top four. We'll start with last season, though, mate. You finished fifth. Was a bit of a shame, probably in your fans' eyes, in Mikel Arteta's eyes, and the squad's eyes after you were in the top four for a long period of time. Leicester fans know the feeling of that of 2 seasons on the dropping out. You finished fifth. You played 38. You won 22, draw 3, and lost 13. Goal difference was 13. Goals scored, you were the sixth highest in the division with 61. Ramsdale was 13th with 39 goals conceded. What went wrong, mate? You boys were flying at one point, and everyone, well, you were shoe-on, and then that one game, your rivals came, and the wheels came off again, sadly. You were a heavy defeat at the Lane.
I mean, it wasn't just really that one game. I mean, that proves to be obviously sure the fact that it was us and them fighting for that fourth spot. But, we had 3 defeats in a row a few weeks before. We didn't start the season particularly well, and it was just accumulation of things. Obviously, over the 38 games, we wasn't quite good enough, and that was maybe down to a lack of depth in the squad, particularly after January when Aubameyang was moved on. We didn't have anyone come in and replace him, and I feel as though that maybe was the turning point in a certain degree. We lacked a goal scorer for quite a long time until Eddie Nketiah came into the team at the end, scored a few goals. And there was that period in the middle where maybe if we'd had a goal scorer in the team at that point, we may have picked up a few more points and it would have been enough to have got us fourth place. But ultimately, you finish where you deserve to finish, don't you? Over a 38-game season, we finished fifth. That's probably where we deserve to finish overall. In some ways, maybe we were a little bit fortunate to finish as high as that. In some of the games that we played, you could look at us and we didn't look like a top 6 team. In other games, we looked like we could have been challenging maybe for the title race, possibly in certain games. But it's consistency, isn't it? We're a young team, and ultimately, I think it was an improvement on the season before. Disappointing that we blew it at the end when it was in our hands. We were clearing fourth place with games in hand at one point, and it was frustrating, but ultimately maybe we wasn't ready for the Champions League, maybe like to get in there last season. So maybe the right results happened in the end. We've had a chance to maybe rebuild, go into the Europa League where we'll have more of a chance of progressing in that competition possibly than we would have done in the Champions League anyway. And hopefully we can build on it and this season can go a lot better. But we'll have to see. It's a good start anyway.
Oh, well, one game in, but a win's a win, as Leicester fans would have taken at the weekend after blowing a 2-0 lead against Brentford at home. You boys, you beat us twice last year. Both times you beat us 2-0. I was at both of the games. The first one at the King Power Stadium, you destroyed us. It should have been a horror show for Leicester, and it should have been 4 or 5 if we're honest about it by half time. Sacco, Smith Rowe were devastating that day. You boys looked like a team again capable of pushing for the top 4. And then same for the second game where it was a bit more even Steven. And then second half, you put your foot on the gas and you just pulled that bit of quality and you pulled away from us. Over those 2 games, I mean, Smith Rowe, mate, stood out for me anyway. There was a lot of talk before the season about this young man. And Saka, well, after what had happened in the Euros, he came back, he was flying. What was your thoughts of those 2 players' seasons last year?
I mean, Smith Rowe started the season really, really well. I mean, he'd scored 10 goals, I think, by Christmas, which, he'd never really scored many goals before that. In fact, he only got his first Premier League goal, I think, 2 or 3 games from the end of the previous season. So he started really, really well. Then he started getting 1 or 2 injuries in the second half of the season and maybe wasn't quite as good. And Saka, sort of the opposite, really. He had a bit of a slow start, maybe a little bit of a hangover from the Euros, a penalty and all that kind of stuff. And then as we come towards Christmas, he really started to get into the groove, and he was brilliant for the rest of the season, and he ended up top scorer. So I mean, those two were our top two scorers, both sort of midfield players, really. Going back to what I said before, about not having a goal scorer, the fact that we had two young players as well that don't even play as a striker was our top two goal scorers, and they were massively influential in the season. There's no doubt about that, and I don't think we would have finished in the top six if it wasn't for the form of those two. I say Smith Rowe in the first half of the season, especially, and then Saka in the second half of the season. And I think between the two of them, they got us to where we were. Maybe we shouldn't be relying on guys 20 years old, 21 years old. Really, we should have, more experienced players around them, perhaps. But that was where we were, and they were both brilliant. And I say, without those two, without the contributions that they made throughout the season, I don't know where we might have finished. It wouldn't have been anywhere near the top six, I don't think. And those two made the difference. They were the difference in so many games. The game at the King Power, it was Smith Rowe that got the goal, wasn't it? One of the goals. He had a brilliant game that day. That was one of his really better games at the start of that season, actually. So he had a really good game then. And of course, the game at the Emirates, although I don't think neither of them scored, did they? Because I know one of the goals was a penalty, wasn't it? And they both played really well in that. I mean, Saka was brilliant that day, wasn't he? So, they had a massive influence on the season, and let's hope that Smith Rowe can get himself fit again, because he's out injured at the moment, and hopefully both of them two can carry on and keep progressing, because the future for them two is going to be fantastic, isn't it? For both, for Arsenal and hopefully for England as well.
Oh, massively. Well, there was another man who stood out for me at the King Power, and that was your goalkeeper, Ramsdale. I mean, there was a lot of talk when he went to you. I got Bert Leno in goal, and everyone was raving about him. Obviously, you'd loaned and sold Martinez to Villa, another goalkeeper who's gone on to show what a top quality. You'd lost him, but you brought in Ramsdale, a player or goalkeeper who'd been relegated twice in 2 seasons from the Premier League with Bournemouth and then Sheffield United. You spent 30-odd million on him, and there was a lot of talk, well, we're not, what we're getting for 30 million for a goalkeeper who's not really proven at the highest standard of keeping teams in the division. Got a very good shot stopping rate, because you know how much he was being worked. But could he do it at the top level? And my word, what a season he had. And that game, the King Power, the save from Maddison's free kick in the first half, where he tips it onto the crossbar, and then he pulls off the second save for Johnny Evans' bat to tap it into an empty net. I just stood there and went, yeah, they've spent wisely here. They've done the homework. They've worked out this boy can play higher than what he was playing at. You were the only boys who really chucked any money in. The other person you played that day was a £50 million centre half that you signed, Ben White, another one who very him, a lot of money for a young English centre half. But both have had Ben White's steady season, I'd say, for you boys. What would you make of their 2 first seasons at the Arsenal?
I mean, Aaron Ramsdale came in, and I don't think really at that particular time too many Arsenal fans were thinking we needed an upgrade goalkeeper, because Bernd Leno is a good goalkeeper, a very good goalkeeper, international for Germany. He hadn't let us down, and it was a little bit of a surprise maybe that we were investing in another goalkeeper, but he was younger, obviously English as well, and I think that was important. And also as well, the main thing was he's a lot better playing out with his feet than Bernd Leno. Bernd Leno struggled on that aspect of the way that we play. So that was why Aaron Ramsdale was brought in. And to be honest, the way he started his first probably 15, 20 games, he was absolutely brilliant. And, there was no one was doubting why we'd bought him. And that game at your place, as you said, I mean, that save was probably the save of the season, wasn't it? I mean, I don't think there was a better save anywhere in Europe probably last season. It was amazing. I did feel a little bit towards the end of the season in the last maybe 10, 15 games. I don't know whether it was a concentration issue. He seemed to go off the boil a little bit towards the end of the season. He didn't keep a clean sheet from about February onwards, and he started to get a little bit more erratic. He was making some silly decisions, maybe coming for things he shouldn't come for, and conceding a few goals that earlier in the season he wasn't conceding. And I don't know what it was. Maybe, he's still a young goalkeeper, so maybe that should have been expected. But because he started so well, the standards were so high, and he didn't quite maintain that throughout all of the season. I'd say towards the end, he was a little bit shaky at times, actually. But obviously this season, Bernd Leno's moved on, and we've got a young American goalkeeper as number 2, which tends to suggest to me that Ramsdale is going to be the number 1 choice now without any question. He's going to play most of the games. apart from possibly the League Cup and maybe some Europa League group games. So, you know, he's established himself as a number one. I just think what I want to see, I mean, he made a couple of great saves, didn't he, against Crystal Palace on Friday to help us win. So, you know, he's a great goalkeeper. I think this season he just needs to be a little bit more consistent. He even said himself, I saw a podcast he did, and he was saying sometimes he loses concentration in games. He finds it difficult to concentrate. And you could see that in some games. And he does need to improve on that. That's the one thing. And I think if he does improve that, which I'm sure he's been working on, he's going to be a great goalkeeper. World Cup coming up this year, he's going to challenge Pickford, hopefully, for that spot. I mean, Pickford seems pretty well established for England at the moment, but who knows? You know, if Ramsdale keeps playing the way we've seen him play, there's no reason why he can't be the number one choice for the World Cup, but we'll have to see. In terms of Ben White, looking at it now, with William Saliba coming back off loan and looking so good, you're suddenly thinking, was that £50 million well spent on a central defender when we already had one that was out on loan? Obviously, last season, we did need strengthening in that area. And he had an okay season, Ben White. And I think maybe without the price tag, everybody would have been saying great signing. If we'd paid 25 million for him or 30 million for him even, I think most people would have thought, you know what, that's a decent deal. Because it's 50 million, I think the expectations obviously go up because of the money that you spent on a player. And I think that's the same in any player anywhere. You know, the more money you spend on a player, the more you expect from them, don't you, I suppose? And has he been a £50 million player last season? I would say maybe not. Has he been a good signing? Is he a good player? Yes, he is. He's a very good player. And I'm sure, again, he's quite young, 22 or 23, I think he is. Again, he's going to improve. He's going to be wanting to look to get in the England squad as well for the World Cup. And yeah, I mean, he's a very good player. But I would say he's probably not a £50 million defender when you look at the price of some other defenders that have maybe been cheaper than him, that are maybe, you know, maybe better overall. I don't know. It's early days with him, though, isn't it? He's still young, and he had an okay season, a bit up and down. Sometimes I think the physical side of the game he tended to struggle with at times against big, strong centre forwards. I thought he struggled at times, but he's very good with the ball at his feet. He can bring it out of defence. Again, suits our style of play, and that's obviously why we spent the money on him. And again, it's an investment, isn't it, for the future? He's a young player. He's got a lot of years left in him, and hopefully he will keep improving along with the rest of them. And I'm sure he'll prove to be a good signing. I think he's always going to be overpriced, unfortunately. That's not his fault. He didn't set the price. You know, that's what it was. And that's what we needed to pay to get him. And I think he'll prove to be a good signing. But this could actually be quite a difficult season for him with Saliba coming back in. He's going to be battling for that place now because Saliba got man of the match on Friday. You know, he's not going to get left out of the team. So that leaves Ben White in a bit of a situation. He has to play right back to accommodate Saliba. And at the moment, our right back's injured, so he might get a run at right back for a while. But what happens when everybody's fit? Is he going to be an automatic choice as he was last season? We'll have to wait and see. He's got a lot of work to do to improve his consistency and to improve his level, especially now, say, with Saliba back. So it's going to be an interesting season for Ben White, actually. And it might improve him. Having that competition might improve him and might push him on to even greater things. Let's hope so.
I mean, Saliba and Fofana both moved from Set to Etienne at the same time. Obviously, we paid about 32 million, I think, for Fofana. Not sure how much you paid for your centre half at the time, but both came in, one hit the ground running. Fofana had a great debut season, finishing off in an FA Cup. Obviously, then had a nasty injury at the start of last season where he broke his leg in the final preseason game against Villarreal, sorry, at the King Power, and then was obviously out to April. It's taken a long road to come back. He's played last April, March time when we played in the Europa Conference away at Rennes and scored a goal on his. Came back and was brilliant. And like I say, it takes a lot for these young players to stand up with the price tag they chucked on them. Going into this season, obviously you've made a few signings. Let's talk about the one you haven't signed yet, but rumoured to be signing. Mr. Yuri Tillemans, it's been on a radar for a very long time. I saw another article this morning where I was flicking through the pages of he will sign for you, but not till next year now, and they're going to sign him on a free transfer. It's all been agreed, and Leicester will now just have to pay his contract till the end of the year and lose him on a free and not get any for the 40 million repaid. There's other reports saying that no, Arsenal just letting Leicester wait till the final few days and knowing that they need some money in the kitty to go out and buy some players, and then we'll come in with a 20 to 25 million pound offer. Obviously, a lot of talk after the game on Friday night with Gary Neville and Carragher, and I thought it was quite impressed to see what they were talking about Arsenal and what they thought of your chances of being up there. And they were very positive, but they said you needed one more creative mid player in there. You've got a lot of defensive midfielders, but you hadn't got that one creative. We all know on his day, Yuri Tillemans, when he's in a settled position at a settled football club and he's happy, he's a world beater. He's up there with some of the best midfield in the world. He could be at his age, 24, 25. He could get better and better. What would you thought if Yuri Tillemans then Arsenal find decides to do it this season or next? Do you think he's that little bit of the missing jigsaw? Because obviously at the moment you still got Fabio Vieira to come in. I think he's had a little injury and he's not started yet. He's another creative midfielder for your team. Do you think Yuri could come in and do the job that Carragher and Gary were talking about on Friday night?
I mean, yeah, he's a great player. There's no doubt about that. He's Premier League ready as well. I've always liked us buying players that are already in the Premier League as opposed to players from, other leagues where they've got to settle in. Some players take 2 years to settle in, don't they? And you've got that risk. Yuri Tillemans has played in the Premier League for a number of years with Leicester. He's done well. He knows what the Premier League's about. He could walk straight into our team, and I'm sure he would offer us something different, and that would be great. Whether or not it's a priority in that position at the moment, as you said, we've got Fabio Vieira still to come back in. We've got Martin Ødegaard, Smith Rowe still out injured. He kind of plays a similar role, or he can play a similar role. We do seem to have quite a lot of players who can play in that position. So I'm not sure if it's a priority for us. And maybe this is why the talk is of getting him next season. This could be maybe why. At this moment in time, if we're going to spend some money now in this window, I would like to see us maybe spend more on a replacement player for Thomas Partey or Granit Xhaka. If either of those two was to get injured or be out of the side, then I think we need someone. And I don't think that's Tillemans' strength, sitting in front of the back four, dictating the play from there, is it? That's not really what he does. He can probably play that role.
He can play it, but it's not his ideal. And we've seen in games when he has sat next to Ndidi in the middle of the park that the odd stray pass goes, wayward, and suddenly you're on a back foot. And we saw, I think it was PSV away, tried that little bit, dropped in deep, tried to start the play from further back, and we conceded, went 1-0 down away at PSV, and suddenly we had to come back and we won the game 2-1. But it was those little mistakes, and you can see it affect him because he gets beaten up very quickly, he beats himself up, and then he starts to overthink things.
Yeah.
By all means, playing that little bit further forward where he hasn't got to do that defensive work much, and he's a 10 times better player.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel that maybe with what we need right now, is he what we really need in our squad for this season? I'm not sure if he is. I would rather spend the money elsewhere for now. I think we need another backup striker as well. If Gabriel Jesus gets injured, I think we may struggle for goals. So I think there are areas that are slightly more pressing for me than a creative midfield player. We've got 2 or 3 of them already, and we're probably okay. So maybe next season, if that's what the deal is, to get him for free. Wow, I mean, I'd take him all day long on a free transfer. Brilliant! What a great bit of business that would be. But whether that'll happen or not, we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we? But yeah, I wouldn't say it's a priority for us right now. But if we get him for 25 million or something like that, then why not? You know what I mean? He's an extra bit of quality in the squad, isn't he? And you can never have too many quality players. Let's be honest. So if we can get him now, let's get him. But I would rather see us prioritise other areas of the team now, and maybe look for Tillemans next summer for free. That would be great.
Also, we talk about Fabio Vieira. You had Matt Turner come in. Gabriel's, I can't even say his name because he always scores against Leicester. Jesus. And Zinchenko as well. I mean, you've signed some good young players in that team. What you needed, obviously, you lost. Lacazette went back to France on a free. Aubameyang went to the middle of the year, was it? He went to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Obviously, Barcelona can't play anyone because they can't afford wages at the moment. So it'd be interesting how many players are back up sale. But obviously, you signed 4 key players in those areas. What is that going to do Arsenal differently? Because we all know you boys struggled for goals. Let's not deny those facts over the years, over the last 5-6 years. You've had players come in, big name, Aubameyang was scoring goals, Lacazette, but they were never constant. They always went through phases of scoring goals, I would like to call it.
Yeah.
A top striker scores week in, week out. We've seen that with Man City signing Holland. They've signed a world beater. He's going to destroy defences this year after we saw what he did to West Ham in one game. He didn't need much spacing behind either. Where I will look at Vardy, you have to give him 10 yards and then he'll exploit it. Holland was exploiting 4 yards of pacing behind, and his pace was scary at the weekend. You brought Jesus, obviously, from Man City, who I think's an absolute top striker for you boys. And we've seen it since pre-season. The first game, pre-season game, he scored a couple against Chelsea. Was it in pre-season as well? What is he going to offer to Arsenal? Have Arsenal change what they were doing differently this season to, what's the word I'm looking for? Make the goals easier for Jose, because obviously you boys are very much about build the play up from the back, passing, moving. The Wenger way, the Pep way, Arteta way now, because obviously he's come from Man City and followed Pep. Will you change a little bit? Will you speed the play up a little bit more to get in behind teams? We all know Gabriel Jesus is great in and around that box, and if you can get it into the box, he's a poacher. He's a natural poacher, a natural goal scorer inside that box. Have Arsenal changed this season to work around him?
I think we will play a slightly different style this season, but I think he's been brought in to fit in the style that we've been playing. I mean, I noticed in some of the pre-season games as well, and against Crystal Palace, he was still dropping quite deep at times, which is what Lacazette was told to do when he was playing as a centre forward last season. And I think he'll still do that. But the difference is with Jesus is he can also he can drop deep, start the play, but he can also then get on the end of things in the box, whereas Lacazette couldn't make up that ground enough to get there. And Jesus is going to be able to do that. So I think he's going to add an extra dynamic to our play. And the fact is, as you rightly say, he's a goal scorer. He's a finisher in the box, isn't he? If he gets a chance in the box, he's going to put them away. And that's something that we haven't really had, because Lacazette wasn't able to score. Last season, he got 6 goals, and I think 4 of them were penalties. So he wasn't scoring goals. Aubameyang previously did score a lot of goals. When he first came to Arsenal, he scored bundles of goals. He won the Golden Boot. And then they sort of dried up a little bit. So if Jesus can score a similar number of goals to Aubameyang did when he first joined, with the extra work rate that he brings and the fact that he can join up with a play, he can drop deeper, he can get involved sort of further up the pitch, and he's going to finish things off as well. It's the perfect player. But my worry is if he gets injured, because we'll be back where we started. You know, Eddie Nketiah's come in last season and did well, scored a few goals. He's looked good in pre-season. He came on against Crystal Palace, replaced Jesus, and did well again. But if we had to rely on him for 20 games, would that, is that going to cost us? Whereas what you're going to get with Jesus. If he plays every week, Jesus will score 25 goals this season, I think. If he plays week in, week out, if he doesn't get injured, that's what he's going to bring. And that's an exciting thing to look forward to. And he didn't score against Crystal Palace, and a few people made a bit of an issue of that. But it's one game. He's going to score a lot of goals this season. There's no doubt about that. He had a great game against Palace, and he's an exciting signing. And Zinchenko as well. The good thing about Zinchenko is his versatility, because he can play left back where he played against Crystal Palace. He can play in midfield as well. And maybe that's why we're not going to go after a more defensive midfield player, because they might think, Zinchenko can play there when Tierney's back fit for left back. So we've got a few more options now. And Zinchenko's a great player. There's no doubt about that. He's another. I mean, I said, I think 3 or 4 years ago, that he was a player that I thought Arsenal should have been looking at then, and maybe we was, and it couldn't happen. But obviously we've got him now, and I'm excited about that signing as well. I mean, Fabio Vieira, don't know too much about him, a young player, but he looks an exciting prospect as well. Another one who he might need a year to adapt to the Premier League and to the physicality and all that kind of stuff, but I'm sure he's going to be a good long-term signing as well. And obviously the backup goalkeeper, Matt Turner, is just what he is, a backup goalkeeper. He'll probably play the League Cup. He'll probably play the Europa League group games and stuff like that. See what he's like. Hopefully he'll be okay, do a good job, and that'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, Jesus is the one we're all excited about. Everyone loves a goal scorer, don't they? At the end of the day, that's what they're the players that catch the headlines. You can buy great defenders, brilliant, but it's a striker, centre forward, goal scorer that makes everyone excited, gets people off their seats. And I think he's the one that we're all looking forward to seeing how he goes this season. But yeah, I think he's going to bring an extra dynamic to our attacking play. Certainly that we've lacked in the last couple of years, definitely. And if he really does sort of hit the ground running as he has done in pre-season, if he carries on with that once the season starts going on, it's going to be fantastic. And he could make the difference actually between us challenging for the top 6 and really pushing on in the top 4. I think he could be the difference maker this season for us. I'm certainly confident that he will.
I mean, you talk about the headline makers, obviously strikers, and you say they're the ones that everyone pays the money to see. But obviously you go back into the day, there was a time when people liked to see a good, solid centre-half or a centre-half. And there was only a few over the years. Tony Adams was obviously one of your boys, the leader, the captain. I've had the pleasure of meeting, having a chat with the top man. And then it was like down the years, it was centre-half. It's not the fashionable position if you want to be a footballer. Everyone wants to be that player. And then came a young man, Rio Ferdinand, who lit up the scene and made football fashion again to be a centre half. John Terry, the boys are starting to bring out now. Starting to see a new fresh blood. Obviously, you've got one of the young centre half. We've got another one for Fana now. They're talking about 90 odd million to Chelsea. What I don't think will happen after seeing reports today. But do you think the day of the centre half now as being the focal point of the team has gone, and it is all about your star man up front for you boys? Because obviously back in the day, you boys were known for, I remember growing up, Adams, Bold, Winterburn. You could read it off, you know, Seaman in goal. You boys were made from your back line, and Wenger have made you strong. Nowadays, you probably haven't got the strongest of back lines compared then, but now you're starting to get a very, very breathtaking strike force or attacking line. Smith Rowe, Saka, Martinez, Jesus has just come to you. Who's the lad who plays on the wing for you? He's gone up my head now. Martinelli.
Oh, Martinelli, yeah. No, Martinelli, yeah.
Pepe can't get a game for you boys. We've been linked with him at one point during this transfer window. You have got some really, really creative and attacking flair now. What you probably didn't have for a few years. You had it at one point when you had Omri. There was a few players down there, you know, Perez, Overmars. You could read them off in that same kind of era, and then you know, it's all changed. Going into the game on Saturday, again, 3 o'clock. Leicester fans are over them. We were getting a 3 o'clock game. We don't get many of them over the last few years. No. How do you think this one's going to go? Do you think there'll be many changes to that starting lineup from the game at Palace? And what's your prediction for the game at the weekend?
I don't think there'll be too many changes. No, I mean, there's a couple of players like Kieran Tierney, who's just come back from injury. He came off the bench against Palace. He could possibly start, but Zinchenko played well. Would you leave him out? Maybe not. So I'm not really expecting there to be change. I don't think Smith Rowe's fit yet, so I don't think he'll be in contention to start either. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was the same 11 that started last week, actually. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I'll be quite happy with that because they played well. And, you know, it's about momentum sometimes in football, isn't it? You get a good start, you want to keep it going. If you make too many changes, it can disrupt that flow. So unless there's an injury, a last-minute injury or something like that, I expect probably the same starting 11. The only one could be Kieran Tierney, possibly, to come in. Other than that, I'm not expecting any other changes, really. In terms of the game itself, I mean, it's our first game at home this season. Yeah, 3 o'clock kickoff. We don't have too many. Obviously, you've been in the Europa League last couple of years, so that's why you don't get Saturday games at all, yeah. So, you know, we've sort of had the same as well. Obviously, last year we had a few more because we wasn't in Europe, so we got 1 or 2 more 3 o'clock kickoffs. So, but it's good. The first home game is always nice. I'm sure the atmosphere will be great as well because everyone's quite excited this season for Arsenal. So I'm sure there'll be a really big atmosphere there, and it should be enough to get us over the line. I mean, your record away at Arsenal, I know you did beat us a couple of years ago in that COVID season when there was no fans in, but that's your only victory since the early 1970s, I think, isn't it, away at Arsenal? So, you know, it's the sort of team that we usually enjoy playing at home. We've had some good wins against you guys recently. So I would be surprised if we don't win. And, you know, I think having seen your game last weekend, where you looked good for certainly the first half and bits of the second half, and then it kind of got away from you at the end, didn't it? You ran out of legs or whatever it might have been, and Brentford came back and got the draw. Makes me feel that maybe at this moment in time, we're in a slightly better place. I think we've had a really good pre-season. We've had some good signings. You've lost a couple of your better players. You haven't made any signings yet. So I think in terms of momentum and stuff like that, it's in our favour massively for this game in particular. It's, you know, I think at the minute I'd fancy our chances against most teams. Even if we were playing maybe Liverpool at home this week or, you know, Chelsea at home, I'd fancy our chances at the moment, the way things are going for us. So obviously playing Leicester, who seem to be a little bit of disarray at the minute with the transfer situation. So I would be surprised if we don't win. I wouldn't necessarily say massively comfortably. I do think we'll win the game. I think that the crowd as well, and I'll be surprised if we don't win. Maybe, you know, it could even be similar to last year, 2-0, maybe even 3-0. I just feel that we're in a really good place at the minute. And it is probably a good time for us to be playing you because of what's going on at your club at this moment in time, whatever it is with the transfer situation, players leaving right, left and centre. Obviously, you've got a couple of injuries as well, haven't you? Key injuries, which hasn't helped. So, yeah, it is probably in our favour this week. But football doesn't work like that always, does it? Sometimes that's when the team puts in a result. You know, everyone fights for each other. You might turn up at the Emirates on Saturday and just give it everything you've got. And who knows, we might be 1% off our form, and that can sometimes make a big difference. But I'll be surprised if we don't win. I'll go for 3-0 just because I feel we're in a good place at the minute, and we want to build on the momentum that we've got at the moment, I think.
Well, Rich, thank you so much for your time. Rich from Over and Over and Over Again podcast for Arsenal. Thank you again, mate. Much appreciated. Take care, and we'll catch up soon.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot for your time. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
Take it easy. See ya.
And there we go. Another Away Fans show. Thank you for joining us. Keep it at Leicester Fan TV, and we'll catch up with you next time. Cheers. Good night.